Welcome to Some Stutter.
Newfoundland and Labrador's first podcast.
It's about communicating differently.
I'm Paul.
I'm Laura.
I'm Greg, and I'm a person who stutters.
Today on Some Stutter, we have Gifton Duffy.
What do we want to say about Gifton?
Gifton's a warrior. He's a definite warrior. He was born in New Brunswick, and he has stuttered since a child, and he has been sort of struggling with his stuttering for 50 years, but that has not stopped him. So in this, for those listeners who would be listening to this, to Gifton, you'll walk away with awe with how he has sort of stepped to the plate and sort of worked with his stuttering.
And to use Gifton's words himself, persistent. Persistence is a theme that runs through Gifton's life. We tend to focus on the adverse impacts of stuttering, but he says that stuttering is something he can manage because he is persistent.
He talks about the benefits of his travels, how it made him stronger. Like one statement he made, powerful: "Who's in the driver's seat?
Mm-hmm.
Is it stuttering or you?" And it's a choice. It's a choice. It's left up to us as people stuttering. We can be controlled by stuttering, or we can control stuttering. Hey, sir.
What kind of car are you driving, Greg?
Oh, no, it's all a mental car.
Yeah.
What kind of mental car are you driving? Are you in the passenger seat or the driver's seat?
I spent so many, I shouldn't swear on it, but I've spent so many years in the back seat. Now I'm driving.
You get to choose whether you're in the driver's seat or whether your stutter is in the driver's seat.
Yeah, definitely. He has reached a point now that he's at a peace of mind that he has accepted his stuttering. He's in a good place.
I like he has a lot of stories. Gifton has a number of stories that he shared once at the Canadian Stuttering Association conference. And he called his talk "Be Brave."
Be Brave, Adventures with a Stutter.
That's right. Yeah. And so he outlines a number of personal anecdotes. He's traveled the world. He's gone on international adventures. But yes, he also worked in prison, right?
Yeah.
So
which was laughable because I thought, were you in prison? He said, "No, I was a cook in prison."
These are great examples of how he is in the driver's seat. He has, despite communication barriers that could rub up against him in going out into the world, he still goes out into the world and has done quite well for himself.
During our interview, Kevin talks about his next adventure, while our belief in ourselves lets us know we can accomplish the next challenge because we have accomplished all the previous challenges. So he talks so much about facing our fears as people who stutter and how it's important to not avoid fear, not to succumb to fear, but to really sort of face our challenges. And that's how we build confidence as people who stutter. And this is how it's a step towards appreciation, acceptance of stuttering. So, I mean, for me, Gifton is a role model. As you were saying, Paul, that we often talk about the stuttering as being a nemesis, but there's a lot of positive to being a person who stutters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not to take away from the personal and internal struggle that you have to string words together and put sounds together. That's certainly a reality. But if we have more stories of accomplishments, accomplished people who stutter, that's like you said, that can serve as a positive role model for younger people who stutter, even children. So this is a good thing to show.
Stutter, this is good advice for life.
Yeah.
And really, ultimately, people who stutter are people. And other people, I think, will also find a lot of value in a story of perseverance like Gifton's.
Oh, definitely, Laura, definitely. Because when I was talking to Gifton, I had image that many people who stutter unfortunately stand on the periphery of life. We're almost like we're on the sidelines looking in. Gifton has embraced that. He's jumped into life. He really is actively participating in life. So you're right. It's for anybody who are challenged with confidence. So.
Mm-hmm. So, Greg, what do you think of one part where Gifton talks about his experience as a person who stutters has taught him that people are generally nice, especially if you're honest with them.
Oh, definitely, because people, it's interesting. People present different facades, but I mean, if they meet somebody, whether you're a stutterer or just anybody who are challenged with their own like issue, but when they
Mm-hmm.
open up, all the walls are broken. People need to talk, so they use that
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to share. So
For sure.
definitely,
And I guess that's if the person engages, right? I mean, we
correct.
can be uncomfortable by disabilities. We can be uncomfortable, or some people might be annoyed that's a person who stutters wasting their time. But if they really engage with the person and let them be who they are, then you do find this like this meshing of personalities where you may even learn something from the other person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this has been a sort of common thread in a lot of the interviews that we've done with folks who stutter and folks who, are neurodivergent. There seems to be this idea that while it's super scary, putting your vulnerable, authentic self out there right away, either by disclosing your stutter to the person you're speaking to, even if they're a stranger, or by some other method, this seems to really help bridge the communication gap in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not. It's a message for us all to go the extra mile.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not difficult to listen to somebody who stutters, if you just give them the opportunity, right? Right, Greg.
That's so true. That's a poignant statement, Paul, because we've had guests, we have friends who stutter. There's various types of stuttering, but once you're authentic, once you're really listening to the person who stutters, you actually go beyond the stuttering.
Hmm.
You
Absolutely.
you're seeing them for who they are, and you're actually listening to them. The stutter goes away.
Hmm. That's an awesome point. How do you cure stuttering? By listening.
Yeah, but but how I was going to phrase it is that really, no matter if you're had therapy or if you haven't had therapy, the cure is to not let stuttering control you, but to speak to whoever, whenever, and wherever you want.
For
That
sure.
is the cure for stuttering. Now, I should package it and sell it. We should package it and sell it.
We should make little buttons or big buttons. I think big buttons. The bigger button,
Yeah,
the better. Like that big.
Love would fit on the button better.
yeah. Love
Yes.
and understanding. Yeah.
And love, patience, understanding. It's all the things that the Beatles have sung about.
All we need is love. All we need is love.
And likes on this video, and for you to click the subscribe button, and please share it with people you love and people who stutter, because that is what tells whatever platform you're listening to our podcast on right now that this content is meaningful and important to you, and that will help them show it to more people.
So Gift, before we start, you open up your presentation by saying that my biggest fear is public speaking, but my superpower is persistent.
Yeah, I mean, I guess as a child, I mean, I had a stutter since I was very small. And in my presentation, I kind of tell the story that I didn't know I had a stutter until I went to school and people told me I talked funny. Because at home, it wasn't something that was ever brought up. I was just able to talk and everybody treated me well. Yeah, and then so, it's kind of adventure as you get older. You go, okay, I do have this speech problem, and it can cause problems. I guess you get a little more concerned about it as like you become a teenager, and um, yeah, and I guess like I grew up in a small town, so I was seen as a speech language pathologist just through school up until I was maybe 10 or 11, something like that. And yeah, I guess I don't know. I guess part of the my teens, you just kind of spend time figuring out how to keep it at bay. You learn kind of tricks to get through your conversations and to find the easiest path to get through talking, right? At times, and yeah, I guess it took me a while before I came to grips that I was a person with a stutter, and I had to accept this, and I had to make it work. And that was probably in my 20s when I started kind of approaching it in that manner.
So, Gifted, have you befriended your stuttering? Like you said, said that you have accepted it, but have you friended it? Is it? I mean, but both are same, but befriended.
It's more of I don't love it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like it's more of an awareness thing. It's there. You got to make the best of it. And I guess for me, it's more of I don't guess as a kid, as like a teenager and stuff, you were kind of hard on yourself. Like I can do better. I can do better. I can do better. And it was more like I can do better at not letting people know I stutter. And now it's more like I can do better by using my tools, and if I stick to what works for me, I can do well, right? And so it's kind of a different approach. It's you kind of accept it and you stop beating yourself up over what you might call the problem, and it's just like now you just make it work as best as well I possibly can, right?
Okay. You know, you you also use the analogy of who's of driving when in relation to comparing control to stuttering. Who's in control driving? Is it yourself or stuttering? So we just share a little bit about that analogy.
Yeah, so I like to think of who's in the driver's seat, and I do this with my life for lots of different things, like who's making the decision here, because we can all be insecure or scared, or our initial reaction to something can be no, right? And so when I think about my stutter and I think about situations I'm in, I go, why do I want to say no, or why do I want to avoid this? Is it my stutter who's making this choice, or am I like rationally thinking this through, right? And so it's kind of although a lot of the times you can be in the driver's seat and you're like, I thought, I thought this through. I'm making this decision. I'm not avoiding it because I have a stutter, right? But at the same time, your stutter can also surprise you and be more difficult at times, right? And it's just kind of a funny way to think about control. Even though you think you're in the driver's seat, you find yourself you're in the passenger seat again, right? And
It's
it's
so
like
true, definitely,
it's like
definitely.
in my mid 20s, I was speaking really well. I was like, I'm doing really good at this now. And then in my 30s, I was back to seeing an SLP because I was really struggling, and it was a challenge every day. And I was like, that was a big digression over a number of years, right? And you're like, that's not, didn't expect that.
Mm.
It took me a while to really come to grips with it, because being like, why is this getting more challenging? And you go back to you go to see like SLP, and they reteach you your like skills, and then they send you back out.
Mm.
Nice.
Gibson, what, what was the program that you took for what therapy program did you take for your stuttering? Because
Um,
you went back had an earlier program and a later one.
yeah. So like when I was a kid, I mean, I just remember we just used to read books and practice words. It wasn't anything. Don't remember it being a very exhaustive uh, program. And then when I went, it was probably 2017 or 2018. It was I only went about 4 or 5 times, and they just retaught me my like gentle onset and some like tricks all like that. And she's like, you remember all of this? And she's like, I think you're done, you know? And I was like, okay. She's like, you just have to use them. And I was like, yes, that's pretty much my
Well, you
problem.
see that, Jesse, I've also heard that many times over the years as well. Well, Greg, you have the tools, you have to use them.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's easy for a therapist to say, but there's just so much, there's so much more than the physical component of stuttering, like the above the surface of the iceberg. It's all it's all the emotional component, plus the day-to-day lived experiences, challenges, and things like that. So we, we need to be gentle with ourselves on these bad days. And you also mentioned that in your story that there are days when you struggle with it, but you also have to realize, step back and say, you've got to be gentle. So would you elaborate on that a little bit of how you pull yourself out of these challenging periods?
Yeah, like I guess like I think of it as I like the term potential chasing. And it's kind of like a way that I kind of started viewing my life for quite a while. It's like, I can don't know what potential, you don't know what the end goal is. Like potential is pretty broad. So like going back to school and retraining, and I like start to realize I'm spending effort on my life and my health, and I do all this stuff, but I hadn't done anything for like for like my speech. And then I got curious about it, and then anyway, as I started to improve and start to get better again, start to have an easier time with it. You kind of look at like this is the window where I think I should speak. Right, this is about a bad day is going to be on my low end of this, and a good day is going to be on the other end. Right, so I guess I try not to beat myself up because it's like, okay, today was on the lower end of that, right? Like today was a hard day, and then I can probably think about it and go, well, did I pause and did I take a deep breath and did I slow the situation down when I was having a hard time? And sometimes the answer to that is no. And then I go, okay, I know how I can do better tomorrow,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
And then when things are going good, it's obviously it's a lot easier. You don't have to think about it as much, right? But yeah, so it's just trying to like kind of have like the window where I think my speech should probably be, and I don't worry about it when it kind of juggles around there. It's when it goes too low that I'm like, okay, what is going
What's
on here,
going
right?
on? What would be some of the triggers that would trigger like a bad day, not a bad day, like a bad experience speaking situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think the number one thing for me is anxiety. I think when I have high anxiety, I think I don't breathe. I think because you're thinking about so much, and you're like, okay, I'm in a conversation, and you're thinking about what you need to say, and your brain's spinning, and you just forget to pause and to take that breath, and you don't control your volume, and it's really, I think it's really like awareness. It's like you got to realize when you're in the situations, and you got to slow it down,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because like a big trick for me is if I can have like my calm voice, right? It's like that's really where I need to.
The
That's kind
calm
of my
voice,
window,
the
right?
calm voice, definitely. No, you're a lived experience, Giftons. So the really echoes bravery, and you actually talk about bravery through your whole lived experiences. So you want to elaborate on your definition? I mean, you actually explains the you know the you know the dictionary definition, but you also explains bravery from a person who stutters. Do you want to elaborate on that?
I do have my notes here, so like
That's a good,
I
nothing wrong with that.
that's it. That's it. So part of like the dictionary uses mental or part of what they say is mental or moral strength to face danger, fear, or difficulty. And so I kind of thought about that, and I go, I think as a person with a stutter, we do face fear and difficulty each day. So there's really we are using moral and mental strength to face these fears every day. So I think we're inherently brave because every day you get up, there's going to be a challenge in front of you, right? There's no days off, and I think that might be maybe it's almost like I think a characteristic after years of having a stutter is like, okay, I have to go and I have to make this work.
No, you also talk a lot about your traveling, your traveling experience because you traveled through New Zealand, Australia, but this but also on your own you have like a backpack sort of thing, and
Yeah.
I mean, Gifton, this takes a lot of confidence and a lot of courage, which I don't have. I mean, I would never think about even when I was younger just traveling the world on my own. But what was your passion? What made you want to do this?
I think it's a situation where the excitement is greater than the fear, right? I mean, being on the road. I mean, I miss being on the road. It's really nice. It's very free. You're seeing new things every day. It's really stimulating, right? You're living a life where everything you do that day is probably quite new, and you haven't done that since you were a toddler, right? Right. So it's really stimulating, um, and I think it's an opportunity where I solo traveled. It's an opportunity to get to be best friends with yourself. Like your inner dialogue, I think, was something that was a problem in my life, right? Like, I had reasons to be mean to myself, like such as having a stutter and why couldn't I do better? And so being on the road and traveling by yourself, you really do have some days you're on trains and things like that, and you have time to stop and think. And I thought it was really a great situation for me to become my own best friend and really get comfortable in my skin, and I think it benefits me from that period on, really, right? So
Mhm. What you didn't talk about your parents much in your story. What was their reaction to you being out in the world, going to Europe, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, backpacking? What was their response?
well, they were pretty worried, of course. I'm from a we didn't grow up in a home where we traveled much. It wasn't like it wasn't something that was like we talked about far away lands and adventures. We were pretty modest at home, and so I know my parents were always very concerned, but they learned to be good sports. I think over time, like kept in touch, and yeah, I think they kind of understood that it was important to me, and it was probably best that they support me on it, I guess.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah,
Now, during your travels, you also worked in various various jobs. Now, one that really stands out to our listeners, and when when you mentioned that you 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 were a cook in a maximum security prison. Now, you weren't, just to clarify to the listeners, you weren't an inmate. You
no,
actually
no.
you actually cooked. So what was that experience like? Now,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
That
that
experience,
takes confidence. My God.
that experience was in Canada. Uh, it's it's funny. I was thinking about this because I knew it was going to come up, and I'm like, I think it's just like you can discuss it and talk about how brave I was to do it, but I think it's just circumstantially there wasn't anything going on at that time, and the opportunity showed up, and I was like, okay, I'll try it, right? And but yeah, the experience itself. I mean, obviously walking in and going through the sliding gates and walking the concrete halls and going into work in the kitchen, the big industrial kitchen, and yeah, you get to meet inmates. You work with people from all kinds, all kinds of backgrounds, and they're kind of your co-workers in kind of a sense, right? So, you do get to know them, and you have some conversations, and yeah, it's a very stressful place to work. I wasn't built to work in a place like that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
found it was really stimulating, and it was like, how does this situation work? And as like any environment you go to, it's always kind of curious on how does this work? And so as there's a lot of social order there, like they have their own codes for things, and it was really interesting to kind of get in and to work in an environment well like that. But I think over time it's really, really difficult to work there. You're kind of on alert a lot, right? You're working in a like environment that could could get could kick off in a short period of time, right? So
Hmm.
yeah, so
But did that cause you more anxiety? Did that well, I'm sure it did, but did it exacerbate your stuttering, or over time you became comfortable? And
you know, I think about that period of time, and my speech was okay there. Like I think it's a couple things. I think I was pretty high functioning, high anxiety. I think in my early 20s, like I did a lot, but I think I was, looking back now, where I understand what it's like to be low anxiety, and I think I was just really high functioning. And I think secondly, I think it was an environment that people didn't mention it much. Like nobody gave me a hard time because I had a stutter. Like I think I think I kind of learned in life it's a vulnerable trait, and sometimes people, it's almost identifiable to people, right? It makes, like I feel like people sometimes open up to you or treat you differently because you have a vulnerability that's generally pretty easy to see after you talk to somebody for a short while, right? Yeah.
now, you also mentioned this in your story that you talk about the benefits of having a stutter. Do you want to share that and elaborate a little bit more?
Oh yeah, what my stutter taught me, kind of some
Correct.
of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. I mean, I guess taught me to be brave. I think, you kind of have the option to either avoid everything or go out and or go and chase some stuff, right? Go find goals you would like to you would like to accomplish. Um, and Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think having a stutter is a bit of a, like, I grew up in a small town. I didn't have other friends who stuttered. So to me, it was a bit foreign. So I guess it taught me to be an independent person, right? Like, I think I've always had to, even though I had friends, it was like, well, maybe there was this thing that we didn't relate on, So maybe it was always like a way to be independent. And I think that's good. I think that was definitely positive because I think as I went through life and as you look through the next few chapters, you go, well, maybe I was an independent thinker,
Mhm,
right?
mhm, mhm.
Yeah,
You know, you you also talked about one of the biggest challenges you had going, I mean, traveling, and that many of us as people study have experiences which causes a lot of anxiety, and is trauma, is customs, going through customs. So do you want to talk about that?
yeah. So I kind of a backhanded joke in here about what's the worst part of traveling with a stutter, and the response was being held up in customs, and
It's so true.
it has happened, where people are like, okay, why is this person stalling? Like, what's going on here? And it does create stress. And then, yeah, I think, you know, I was actually, when I gave the presentation and I opened the floor to have the talk, that was something that came up, and people were conversating a lot about that. And I thought it was kind of funny because it was just a little two-line joke, right? But it is something that we all have to deal with.
Oh,
And,
definitely.
and I think, it is stressful when you know, like, oh, well, if I don't answer this question promptly and fluently, that maybe they're going to pull me aside.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's only been a couple times, but yeah, it's definitely not fun when people think you're not telling them the truth because because you stalled or you got stuck on some words. Or
Yeah. Now, do you think that that self disclosing as a person who stutters just before you go, I mean, just as you arrive at the customs, would that be helpful? Would
I
that
think
be
it's a great idea.
yeah. Oh, for sure, yeah. Because I
Yeah.
remember years ago as well. I went through customs when I was driving to the States from Toronto to, I think, Buffalo. Anyhow, so of course, whenever I go through customs, I almost like the anxiety level is so high, and so of course I succumb to my stuttering, the old pattern. I actually couldn't say words, so of course I was pulled over.
Yep.
And asked a lot of questions, so on and so forth. And I said the only reason why he pulled me over was because of my stutter. I was very fluent. I got so upset and angry, and when I get angry, I don't stutter at all. Do you?
No, it's fine. It really smooths things out, eh?
Yeah. But anyhow, so I mean, I've learned now to when I go through, I said I'm a person who stutters, and so normally it's just smooth, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But the anxiety level is there as well.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's there's a card that some people use, and I think it was developed by the Stuttering Foundation. I'm not too sure, but it's called "I'm a Person Who Stutters," and so some people use present this card
Yeah,
to agents or wherever. So anyhow, that stood out completely. And but you also suggest that you also reinforce based on your lived experience the importance for a person starting to be gentle with themselves.
yeah. I think it's like just kind of part of my journey was, I'm learning to not be a perfectionist, and it's been a pretty gradual road. But as a young adult and stuff, like I was still pretty hard on myself. I was like, you really need to execute better. You need to execute better, And once you kind of go that, you kind of get to acceptance, and you're like, okay, this is this challenge that I have to address every day, and I should be a good sport about it. And yeah, I guess being gentle on yourself is really just not stressing about the small things. It's like, well, I didn't do that very well, but that's okay. That conversation didn't go too great, but that's fine. I know what I did wrong. I forgot to breathe, or something like that. And yeah, I think it's, you don't want to put too much pressure on yourself, because I mean, that's just really carrying weight around, right? If every day
Mhm,
you're putting a lot of pressure on to like have perfect fluency when that's likely not attainable, right?
mhm, mhm,
A realistic goal.
mhm. Oh, definitely, definitely. Now, at the end of your presentation, you use the quotes, and I thought those quotes are wonderful. Very inspiring. Do you want to share some of the quotes to our listener?
Yeah, sure.
I also love quotes as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm I'm a big music fan, so when I listen to a song and I hear a one liner, I'm like, that's fantastic, right? And just I really enjoy quotes. I think it's a perspective thing. You can hear something said and you're like, that's just really cool. I love comparison is the death of joy, and that is a Mark Twain quote.
Hmm.
And I just love that. It just in life we get, you know, I've we can I guess let me talk about myself. You can get focused on everything else around you and comparing yourself, and it's like, well, that's not life. Life is what you're doing every day. It's an individual task, to live your life. And I just love that quote, because it's like, if you're going to live a good life, don't waste your time comparing.
So true.
Like there's
Definitely.
always somebody who's more of this and more of that, and don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is definitely one I really like. Yeah, I mean, I like this. I'm a Neil Young fan. When you're old enough to repaint and young enough to sell, that just reminds me because like my life has been, I guess, some big changes to chapters, right? Like, you know, like working at the prison, you could probably just draw a thick line, and then that was next life after that, and then you could probably draw another line in like my 30s when I left catering, and that's a very different chapter. And I just think it's really nice to think that because like change is scary, and we're always concerned about what's going to happen, but you can always you're old enough to repaint, and you're young enough to like sell, so you can always move on to that next chapter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is one. And yeah, yes. Let's not try to figure out everything at once. And that's from a song called "The Fake Empire." It's by a band called The National. And I just really like that. We get overwhelmed. Like I know I can get overwhelmed when there's a lot of different problems, and you're like, you know what? I can only solve one at a time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's not stress about it. Let's just you're going to solve a problem, another one's going to show up. So you might as well just keep a good pace.
Definitely. Great word. Great pearls of wisdom,
Well, thank you.
Gifton. Yeah. There's one quote that I always use. I mean, this is a very close friend of mine. Always use this analogy. Well, I mean, to shorten it, it's called turning ashes into incense. Turning ashes into incense. Like through life, we all experience periods in life. But whenever you experience a dark period, which is the ashes, step back and look at what happening in this dark period or these challenges. In these ashes, there's these in incense. Incense are the opportunities for growth and learning. So whenever we are challenged, and this goes for me and me as personal stutters, that when I have a bad day, whatever, step back, look at what happened, these ashes, and then we grow from it, the incense. So turning ashes into incense. Love that one.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Thank you. Now, I'm wondering, Gifton, before we close now, you have a wonderful sense of freedom and traveling, whatever. Now, you talked about a different chapter now. Now you're in an office.
Yes.
I mean, this is a big contrast from you traveling the world. So how are you transitioning to that?
You know what? I think it's gratefulness. I think part of traveling, I learned to be really grateful for the opportunity to travel and really the opportunity to grow. And I'm really grateful that I was able to just start a new chapter. Like, this is very different than what I used to have to do. This is a long, long way from being a film caterer or working in
Mm-hmm.
a prison or even working in fine dining or something, right? And so I'm kind of grateful that I get to see the world from a different type of work. But yeah, I mean, of course, I work with my hands. I used to get up and work weird hours, and it's it's a big change. But I don't miss rolling out of bed at 2 a.m. to go work on a film set or something, right?
Have you, you mentioned that, well, you have this fear of public speaking, but have you thought about going into the public speaking circuit within the stuttering community?
I don't know. I mean, I think like I prepared this and I actually second guessed myself. And I remember talking to like my partner and was like, like my rationalization was when I sit and hear anybody talk about their lived experience, no matter what it is, I'm fascinated. How did somebody live their life? What's the impacts, But when I got to do it for myself, I'm like, well, what happens if this isn't interesting enough? Like what happens if this doesn't help anybody? And, you know, but then you kind of relate it back. You go, like, every time I hear somebody talk about their life and their lived experience, it's always something I walk away with a few handfuls of stuff. I was like, that was really
Mhm.
nice. Like, I'm glad I attended. I'm glad I heard that. Right. So I guess it was just really a belief that people will walk out of there with a handful of something, right?
Mhm.
that they could think of.
Oh, definitely. Because I mean, I agree totally, Gifton, that the more that I learn, listen to to other people's stories and read other people's stories, that I learn learn a great deal, and it helps me on my journey up, my journey of acceptance as a person who stutters. So, you know, thank you very much for sharing your story this morning. I appreciate it, Gifton. So, before you go, do you have do you have any last words for our listeners? And any pearls
Uh,
of wisdom, which I mean, all you're talking about somebody who's all pearls of wisdom, but do you have any last
I don't
word?
think I have any big pearls of wisdom. Uh, you know, it's if you're on the journey, just keep at it. You know, try to stay positive. I mean, I'm a big fan of re-evaluating every now and then and go, okay, am I improving? Am I getting worse? Where am I? What's my game plan? You know, and I think we can all benefit from doing that. And we can all benefit from counting, or I guess taking stock of how far we have come. You know,
Mhm.
Some Stutter Law is brought to you today with help from Memorial University, the Newfoundland Labrador Stuttering Association, and a whole team of volunteers behind the scenes, without whom today's episode would not have been possible.